Welcome everybody to today's webinar on the Thames Valley Branch PM Challenge competition. Few housekeeping rules just to go through before we start. Excuse me. The webinar itself should take approximately 30 to 40 minutes to go through. We do have up to 1:30 in time, but we've got a number of questions, and if we run over, there'll be an opportunity to see feedback and responses to any of those questions on the Thames Valley pages on the APM website. For questions throughout the webinar itself, we'd appreciate it if you could answer all questions via the right hand side box in the menu there. Your questions box. If you could add in anything you want, we'll respond verbally throughout the webinar itself. In terms of audio quality, hopefully everybody can hear this okay, but if you do have any problems, there's an opportunity to phone in to the webinar if you have problems, but we have somebody monitoring issues throughout, so hopefully we'll be able to resolve those as we go along. We're actually conducting a webinar at the APM headquarters in Princess Risborough, Ivy's house today, and no fire alarms are expected, so if one does go off, unfortunately we'll probably have to reschedule the webinar, but hopefully that'll be okay. So today I'll introduce myself. I'm Sally Andrews. I was the project manager of the PM Challenge for 16-17, and I'm also the chair of Thames Valley branch. In the room there, we've got Rob Downham, who's the APM administrator, who's helping us to organise the event for finals night. It's quite a prestigious event, but something we have done before. And also David Coombes, who you're going to hear from very shortly. Now, David's the PM Challenge sponsor and project board chair. So I'm actually going to hand you over to him now. Thank you, David.
Thanks very much, Sally. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm just looking across the room and I'm getting a nod, so obviously the audio is working okay. So what have we got for you today? This webinar, as Sally said, should take about 30 minutes or so. And if you've got questions, please do use the box on the right-hand side. And we will endeavour to answer those questions as we go, probably stopping a couple of times to take your questions and give you some answers. As you can see on the slide in front of you, we're going to talk about the challenge, the opportunities, benefits, give you some background as to who's involved, talk to you about the competency framework, which we've introduced this year, the actual assessments and reports that you're going to deliver, a little bit on finals night and what's going to happen next. So one key thing for me to mention is that the information guide, which you should all have copies of, is a very useful document. It's been developed over the years that we've been running PM Challenge, and I'd certainly advise printing off a booklet size version for you to have access to during the competition. If we're going to run out of time at the end in terms of questions, don't worry. There'll be a Q&A list, and that'll be on the APM website, as Sally's mentioned. So what is PM Challenge? Now in its 7th year with Thames Valley Branch, we're finding this is a very successful way of engaging with corporate organisations in the Thames Valley area, and it's been running from strength to strength each year. It's fully supported by Thames Valley, the APM administrator for Thames Valley, or coordinator, to give him his correct title. So during the competition, the person that you'll have a primary point of contact is Rob. So initially you'll go to Rob, and then Rob will farm out questions to the project manager, who's a lady called Kathy Stevenson, or to myself, David Coombes, who's the sponsor. There are other people involved, as well as the coordinator and the project manager and the sponsor. There's a project board consisting of up to 5 people who are the judges. And there's also an element of support that comes from the Thames Valley Branch Committee, for various other aspects, including organising the finals night. This year we've got 5 organisations taking part. I would like to especially welcome Leidos. It's their first year entering the competition. And we'd also like to welcome back Heathrow Airport Limited, who've joined us again this year, and Nationwide Building Society, BAE Systems Maritime Services, and Thales. So welcome on board, everybody, and I hope you get an awful lot out of the competition. Altogether, there are 10 teams taking part, yeah, you should find it a very worthwhile project to undertake over the coming months. And in terms of a project, what we're expecting you to do is to deliver a tangible project within the required timeline. And the theme this year is innovation or collaboration, or if you so wish, you could use both. There are no extra marks for using both, but entirely up to you, so long as it uses at least one of those themes. As I've already mentioned, it's a fantastic opportunity to get involved in delivering a small project, and that's the prime focus of the PM Challenge, aimed at people who are new to the profession. You may be a graduate, you may be an apprentice, or perhaps you're on a new career path. Whatever your background, the competition provides the opportunity to develop and practice project management skills and work with mentors and sponsors in your own organisations. So it's a great opportunity. And the great thing about it is that you don't actually have to win to walk away with a prize, as far as we're concerned. Every year we have teams that thank us for providing an opportunity for people to learn about themselves and to be given a self-development opportunity. I had a lady come up to me at last year's finals night and just thank me for having the opportunity to take part in the competition. The team she was in didn't win any prizes, but for them, it was, the whole experience was very rewarding. And yes, it's great to be awarded a trophy, but you can still all be winners as far as the PM Challenge competition is concerned. As with any project management activity, there are benefits. There's a list on the screen there for you. We're aiming to provide you with a competitive yet friendly environment, and we're expecting you to use standard techniques and methods that you would potentially use in your own organisation. You'll need to use both hard and soft skills, and communications is a key aspect of the competition. Everything that you undertake should help you develop your personal skill sets and your abilities as a project professional. That's what we're aiming to do throughout the competition. This year we've introduced more formally the APM Competency Framework. The expectation of the project board is that you'll use elements of both the APM Competency Framework and the APM BOK. And the project board will assess your team's progress against the concepts, terms and activities from the BOK, and also against a number of topics that we've chosen from the APM Competence Framework. You should all have been sent a document which lists those competencies. So if you don't have that, please do get onto us very quickly to make sure that you do have a copy of that. That will be quite key. And that document is an important document alongside the information guide. What I should say is that we're specifically looking for teams to appropriately, easy to say, apply methods and techniques during the delivery of your projects. So simply following an existing corporate governance framework does not guarantee you winning the competition. Every year we see teams have access to a corporate governance framework and just apply it without necessarily thinking whether it's appropriate scaling of the project that they're trying to deliver. And as I mentioned, the competency mapping document is a key document, and you need to review that before you start writing your project proposal or starting your interim report. The next slide is all about timeline. I'm just looking at Sally on the other side of the room. It's going to be a yes or a no as to whether we've got any questions.
Excuse me, sorry, David, not at this point. No, we haven't. Thank you.
Okay. Obviously, the slides are working well. So, timeline, which you'll find in the information guide, has been graphically presented here. I've pulled out the key milestones. First thing to say is that milestone number 9, right at the very end, which is the finals night, we have a tentative date of the 10th of May, but we do need to confirm that. We haven't yet made the booking at the venue. Once we have, we'll be able to confirm that it is the 10th of May. And this year we are making every effort to deconflict with the APM annual conference, which takes place in the last week of April, which is normally when we have our finals night. So lessons learned for us from last year was to make sure that we avoid the APM conference. So we just wanted to demonstrate that we too do learn lessons and take things forward, which is also a key part of PM Challenge. You'll note that as of today, you've got less than 3 weeks to submit your project proposal. We have sent out a template. We're looking for 3-4-page document in terms of a proposal, and that should include a high-level plan within that document, but a maximum of 4 pages. We're not expecting you to produce a project initiation document or a PID. We have had teams in the past submit something like 15-16 pages in terms of a project proposal. That's not what we're looking for at this point. And there is some further guidance in the template that we've sent out. In terms of budget, one of your key challenges at the very beginning is to get hold of some money from your host organisation. I would hope that, excuse me, if you've completed an entry form and we're talking to you today, you have already got funding lined up. But if not, you'll need to get your hands on £500 entry fee, and in addition to that, the project budget of £500 will need to be funded by the host organisation for each team. When you submit your project proposal, you also need to submit a purchase order number so that we can, APM, the royal we, APM can invoice you in a month or so's time for the entry fee. You can spend up to a maximum of £500 on your project. All costs need to be monitored and controlled, and the project board will be looking for evidence of your financial management and cost management during the project, during the competition. And that should also include how you're controlling resource hours and how you're accounting for resource hours. We had a question last year on could teams access other resources? Yes, you can, but these have to be proportionate. If you're going to use other resources within your organisation, such as printing, or you might go to a communications team for some help, as long as it's proportionate with your project, then we will look favourably on what you've done in terms of using your initiative to tap into other resources. But if, for example, you were to spend £250 on printing and didn't declare that in your project budget because you decided, well, that was extra resources that you'd obtained through your organisation, that might not look so favourably on you in terms of your cost management. It's all got to be scaled proportionately and appropriately as far as the project board is concerned. What are we asking you to deliver? A number of reports, the project proposal initially, then an interim report. We may ask you for a progress report. If we do, it'll be a maximum of 2 pages, and the project board will decide whether or not we require a progress report dependent upon how the competition is running and the quality of reports that are coming through. We asked for one of these last year, and it only needs to be a 1-page document. We're not looking for War and Peace. It basically is a quick snapshot of how you're doing. But at the moment, we are not planning to ask for one of those. But I do need to mention it so it's not a complete surprise to you. you'll need to produce a final report, and as you can see on the slide, the percentages are on there in terms of how that relates to the overall marks are on the screen there, and the final report is 45%. So that is the key document really that you should be looking to producing, and the interim report. If you get through to the finals night as one of the 4 teams that present on finals night, then that will represent 10% of your marks for the overall competition. I'll explain more about that in a second. And there is more information in the information guide around document size and criteria for each of those reports. So rather than me read all of that out verbatim, you do need to read that overview document and make sure you understand the criteria that we've stated. In the final report, we will, or for the final report, we will issue you with a template, and we'll do so within the next month, so you have a clear idea of what we're expecting in the final report, which should include an overall management summary of the project, with further sections on learning for key project management components, i.e. the items that we're looking for from a competency mapping point of view. And as I say, we will issue you with a template so that you can see what we're expecting in that final report. Finals night itself, yes, it's quite a way away at the moment, but you do need to consider what you need to do for finals night, and obviously I need to help you understand what finals night is all about if you haven't taken part before or are not aware of how it works. It's normally run at a hotel in Reading, and marks the culmination of the whole PM challenge. Last year we had Professor Eddie Obang as the guest speaker. There were representatives from the APM board, including Sarah Drake, who's the CEO for APM. So we do attract some fairly key people. It was well supported by all the organisations taking part. And even if you don't get to present on finals night, there's still something to be gained by being there for the presentation evening. The marks you obtain for your project proposal, the interim report and the final report will all be used by the project board to determine which of the 4 top teams to take part in the finals night. As I mentioned, the presentation on the finals night is 10% of the overall marks as far as the judges scoring towards the competition. On the night itself, there's a prize for best presentation, which is awarded by the audience. So the audience vote for the best presentation. And then there's a prize for best overall project, which is based on those marks that I've just mentioned, the overall marks that are worked out by the project board. For those not presenting, there is a poster competition based on the points awarded on the finals night. And the picture up at the moment is last year's winning team, in case anybody was wondering who they are. A very happy bunch of people, obviously. Finals night itself, in terms of presentation constraints, you'll find this information in the overview guide, but yes, we do have to state that it has to be MS PowerPoint, animations but no videos. There are more details in the overview guide, and we do provide a computer for your use, and we have a audio technical engineer who helps pull everything together on the night to make sure whatever you've pulled together as a presentation runs appropriately, and teams do get an opportunity to practice on the afternoon of the finals evening. The expectation is for you to focus on the content of the presentation and not the packaging, and we're also expecting you to demonstrate lessons learnt from your experience of the competition. The whole event lasts for about 3 hours. There is food, there is drink, although APM don't pay for the drink, unfortunately, but we certainly will pay for the food. As I say, it is a good evening, and it's a combination of the whole competition. I mentioned the poster competition. Some more happy people on the slide. They won the poster competition last year. And for those people who don't get to present, it is an opportunity to demonstrate what you've learned, what you've done, and how you ran your project. And we do normally see a very good high selection of posters that are displayed around the room. And teams will get, I think looking at the timeline, it's actually about a month to prepare their poster this time round, given the date that we will tell you whether or not you're in the presentation on the finals night or whether you're going to be providing a poster. So, what's next? You should be looking to submit your project proposal based on the theme of innovation and/or collaboration. The deadline for that is the 27th of November. Please use the template, and that gets sent to Rob at APM. You should have Rob's email address. I should know whether that's Rob's personal email address or whether we're using the PM Challenge email address. But there is a PM, I've just been told there is a PM Challenge email address, and even better than that, I will read it out to you. So it's, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put that up on the screen in a second. I'll type it up for you. And you should already have PM Challenge at apm-thamesvalley.org.uk. But if not, we'll make sure that's out and available to you. Have we had any questions, Sally?
We haven't had any questions coming just as yet, so I'm just hoping everybody can see the question box on their screen on the right hand side. So if anybody does have any questions, it'd be really useful if you could type those in any time from now, really, and we'll endeavour to get some answers for you. As David mentioned, anything relating to the current competition, do certainly use the email address which David's about to put up on the screen for you. But also to refer back to the information packed throughout the competition. This is your main guide, and hopefully we've captured everything that you may find useful in that. Last year we ran a feedback survey at the end of the competition, which was of real benefit for us, and we hope we've addressed some of the things that have been raised in that survey, and it's something we'll obviously do again at the end of this competition, in the hope that, you know, we can, going forward, that we address everybody's concerns, I suppose, also to make the competition much better for everybody all round. And obviously we do like to hear from you if you have any thoughts going forward about that. But I think, yes, David's put the email address up on the screen right now. But it looks like we don't have any other further questions coming in. So what will happen, hopefully you've been sent out, or you're just about to be sent out, a frequently asked questions page, which we developed last year, and that's been built upon based on the feedback that we got from our last survey. And actually we have just had a question come in, just bear with me a second. Okay, so question number one is, can you give an examples of previous projects delivered? David, I'll hand over to you.
Previous projects delivered. So, various. We've had some really interesting projects. Last year's winners did a project called Project Bake Off, and they went into a local school and delivered a bake-off competition, or created a bake-off competition around the theme of project management, and it was really good. I must say, we were taken aback. It was a team from AMEC Foster Wheeler. It was the first year that company had entered the competition, and what stood out for that particular team was the standards or the quality of the project documentation that they produced, that was then inherited by their company and others who could then go and run a similar project in a local school. So that was one example. We've had previously we've had a team who have looked at raising money for a local charity for the homeless under the theme of sustainability. This included borrowing a shopping trolley from a local supermarket chain and getting people at work to fill that up with food, and then that was redistributed out to the local homeless. And that was certainly a very community-based type project. A team last year based in the Winnish Triangle, organised a sleep out for office staff to make awareness of the homeless. That in itself was a challenge in terms of covering off health and safety legislation, risk in terms of actually undertaking a sleep out, which presented lots of challenges to the team. And in the process of doing their project, they raised something like over £5,000 for local charity, which we had not seen anybody do that sort of thing until last year. So that was quite something completely different. We've had people look at car sharing schemes. So if it's a tangible project, that's the sort of direction I would steer you towards. Try and do something tangible. Fantastic if you can raise some money for charity. I mean, why not? If it's a good local charity, then why not? Other things we've had teams do is look at inventory systems within their organisation to help recycle furniture or office furniture, and create a better way of tracking the items to actually then recycle them out into a local charity that provided furniture. So all sorts of things going on. The world's your oyster in terms of what you want to choose, but hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, thanks, David. Another question we've had come in. When choosing a theme in the proposal, is that what we will be judged against? As in, if we choose innovation, are we not judged against collaboration? Shall I read that again?
No, I think I understand what the question is there. So it doesn't matter which theme you choose. We're not going to give you different marks if you choose innovation against collaboration. You have an option of two themes. We're trying to be helpful in giving you a bit more choice of how you could relate your project to a theme. What we're marking you against is how you deliver the project, and specifically when you look at the competency matrix that we've provided, we've pulled some themes from the APM Competency Framework, themes or competency topics, sorry, better way to describe them, which we would expecting you to utilise or demonstrate those competencies when you're delivering your project. Does that answer the question? I'm getting nods from the people next to me, so hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, David. I've got a couple more questions here. I might read them together, but you can separate them out. Can we get a more detailed breakdown of the marking per deliverable? And the other question is, do we refer back to the mapping document throughout the project? For example, refer to each competency when used. Okay,
so one of the difficulties of running a competition is that you could very much spoon feed everything to the project teams, and the project teams just do what's in a mapping document, and then we mark you against that. We're very keen to not bury initiative. These days, there is one of the problems we find in the world of project management is a lack of innovation and a lack of initiative. So we are deliberately being vague in terms of, yes, we will give you the type of competencies that we're looking for, but we're not going to give you every specific element that we're going to score you against in terms of in detail. What we'd like you to do is to look at the competency framework, the matrix that we've given you, look at those competencies as they appear in the APM Competency Framework, which is something which, if you're a project professional, you'll need to carry a copy of that with you throughout your career, because that is the basis for how you deliver projects. And if you took stakeholder engagement, stakeholder management, I'd be expecting you to go and look at that competency in the APM document, look at the left-hand column of the table, and read what it says about application of stakeholder management, and then see what applies to your project, because that's what the project board are going to do. Well, they've already done it, but we know what we'd expect you to be doing. So we're expecting you to look at that competency and go, right, stakeholder management, what specific things would I need to demonstrate if I'm doing stakeholder management in my £500 project, which is going to last 5 months? There'll be some things in there which are obvious that we wouldn't expect you to do because of the size of your project. So if you apply that rationale to each of the competencies, you should be able to then get a very good feel for, well, would the judges be looking for that or would they not? I appreciate that that doesn't give people some of the detail they'll be looking for, but I go back to my point about initiative. We're expecting to see some demonstration of initiative and not lay it all on a plate, because the danger is that we're stifling initiative, and we need to keep that going. We need you people out there to think, and that's a big thing for us within PM Challenge. If that's an answer that people are unhappy with or it causes problems, I'm more than happy to engage with teams or with sponsors, with mentors, to have further conversations about it. But hopefully the sponsors and the mentors appreciate where we're coming from in terms of trying to make it challenging for all the teams in the competition. But I've given you a steer there as to how you could answer the question by going away and looking at the APM.
Okay, thanks, David. We do have another question come in, and this is about STEM projects. The question is, do you tend to find that you get a lot of STEM-related projects? Looking at previous projects, it seems people tend to go for STEM areas, schools, for example. So I was just wondering if you have any thoughts about whether it's best to go STEM or to go down the STEM or non-STEM route.
Yes, the example I gave you for the Project Bake Off, that was focused on a school. We have seen teams from a particular organisation who go out to colleges and schools and do a STEM-based activity. There's no advantage or disadvantage to choosing a STEM-based project. It's an obvious project that you could choose. That doesn't mean to say that because it's obvious it won't win. So there's no advantage or disadvantage by choosing a STEM-based project, is what I'm trying to say. It's how you go about that STEM-based project. My only counsel would be that if you come from an organisation that's done that type of project year on year on year, then the judges will obviously be considering, right, hang on, this same organisation's come in and they've done the same project, same type of project year on year on year. So what's new? I mean, we shouldn't, as judges, let that cloud how we're scoring and marking documentation. But you would really need to knock our socks off, because you'd be in the danger of going down a similar route to previous teams. So in my second part of my answer there, I am actually sort of saying, well, yes, it could become a disadvantage. So the judges have to be very careful how they mark, because we must make sure that doesn't cloud our judgment, is what I'm trying to say. And there's no reason why you shouldn't choose a STEM-based project. But my suggestion would be that from an innovation point of view, you're looking at doing something which might not have been done before, or something that's different. Hopefully that's a reasonable answer to the question and is helpful.
Okay, thanks, David. Another question we've got in, excuse me, is how important is the amount of money we raise? For example, does it count for more points to win? Now, I think it's not a necessity that you have to raise money for your project. David was giving examples previously, but however, you may mean that raising the budget is set. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind, Declan, if you could clarify that point before we answer it fully. And in the meantime, I'll just move on to the next question we've received, which is, what would you say is the most common mistake previous teams have made?
Okay, I'll answer both questions at the same time. Okay. So raising money for charity is not a requirement to win the competition. It's great if you do a project where you raise some money, but there's no criteria that suggest that was, you know, where the judges will tick a box and say, great, that team raised money, this team didn't, therefore the team that raised the money is going through. The point I was trying to make there was, it was great to see somebody doing something that raised money, but it's not a prerequisite for taking part in this competition. So you do not have to do a project where you raise money. I was just using that as an example where it was something really great to see that going on, but there is no judging criteria against raising money for charity. The judges will take into account the type and style of project that you do, but it's not about raising money. The other question was mistakes that people have made. The best example I could give is completely ignoring the page count for reports, the word count for reports, producing a 42-page document when only a 20-page document was required. The judges will not look, what's the word, favourably. That's the word I was looking for. The judges will not look favourably on producing a document that is too long, too wordy, and you've reduced the font size down to size 10 just so you can fit it on all the pages. You have to think that the best steer I can give is that if you are working in an organisation and you produced a report, let's take the final report you have to do. Would you be comfortable putting that in front of the CEO of your organisation, saying, look, would you like to read my report because this is what I've produced for the APM, the PM challenge. We have seen typos in reports in the past, which is unusual. It's not common, but we have seen typos, and we have seen some reports which I would imagine the CEO would be very, very happy. Now, obviously that points towards sponsors and mentors. And some teams have been very, very good in the past in making sure their project documentation gets sign off by sponsors and mentors. So that's another good steer if you haven't thought that, you know, you need to do that. But abide by the rules and make sure you're communicating well with the project board. That's what we're looking for, because communications is a key part of this as well. Would you be happy, you know, to take that in front of your CEO? When you've produced something, that's the big test. Would you end up with a red face? If the answer is yes, go back and have another go.
Okay, thanks for answering that, David. Declan's actually come back and said thanks for answering, David, and there's no need to explain any further, so that was much appreciated. A question I think probably just adds to what you've just been saying has come in. It says, if you could recommend one thing to make sure is included and one thing to make sure we should avoid, what would it be? I think you kind of just covered some of that already. If there's anything else you want to add?
One thing to definitely include is resource hours. We accept the fact that you've got a £500 budget and there's no way you could do this project and pay for the resource with just 500 hours. So the project board appreciate that your time is going to be free, basically. You're going to volunteer this time for this competition, everybody in your teams. But what we would expect to see is that you've taken into account the hours that you've burnt, the hours that you've taken. And what we've seen from teams is that in the past is that some teams have used earned value, or teams have just taken into account the hours that they're undertaking on the project. They've related that to how much it would financially cost, but they have demonstrated that they've taken that into account. So in terms of things that make sure you do that, yes, that's the answer to the what things must you do. Yes, account for your hours and also make sure you account for what you're spending. And the other part was what not to do. I sort of answered that in terms of ignoring the rules around the criteria for the documentation. I think as another steer, go back to that competency matrix that we produced and take a look at that and just think about the key topics that we've highlighted to you. Those are the topics that that are in the judges matrix in terms of awarding marks. that's a top tip in terms of things to look at.
Okay, thanks, David. So one more question we have is, can we have an external sponsor, for example, supplying us with equipment to increase their brand awareness at nil cost to us?
Good question. I think it just depends upon the scale and size of what the sponsor's providing you. I gave the example of a shopping trolley for the collecting food project that went on. We've had, to give you another example, we had Thales at Crawley did an event on raising awareness of electric vehicles, and they organised an event at their offices, and they had vehicles from various different manufacturers, and we were fine. Not a problem with that, because I suppose you're effectively borrowing the asset from a third party stroke sponsor. So that sort of thing, yes, we're comfortable with that. I think you just have to go back and have a think about what are you actually talking about. If it's borrowing equipment to run an activity which is your project, then yeah, we haven't got an issue with that. If you feel that it might cause an issue for you as a team, just drop us an email and give us a bit more information, and we can come back specifically and give you a specific answer in terms of what you're trying to do. But without knowing exactly what you've got up your sleeve or in your mind, can't really say more than that. But hopefully that does provide some sort of steering as to how we would react.
Thanks, David. And I might just add a bit to that. You're able to talk about the project proposal, because at that point we do actually give feedback to teams if need be, and that might relate into what we've just been saying.
Thank you, Sally, for the prompt. So we provide feedback to you during the competition. We'll feedback on your project proposal, we'll feedback on your interim report, and we'll feedback on your final report. When we provide feedback, we try to do it as quickly as we can. There are at least 4 judges involved this year, and that does actually make the feedback process a little bit longer, because we have to all agree that what we're feeding back to you, we all agree upon the feedback. And I think in most cases there's about 4 weeks between your submission and when we feedback. That is the extreme. We will aim to deliver feedback to you within the 4 weeks, somewhere between week 3 and week 4. We'll try and do that. I think we've got some contingency within the 4 weeks. The other thing is, if you submit a project proposal and we have concerns about the project you're planning on undertaking, we will feed back to you immediately, and we will suggest that you might wish to change your proposal. I'll give you an example. Last year, it was either last year or the year before, we had a team that they set themselves some smart objectives, but they weren't 100% smart. They'd actually set them something which was, they couldn't possibly deliver the project. So we went back and challenged the team and said, look, are you really sure about this? Because from our perspective, we don't think you can deliver. You might want to tailor your objective for your project to something a little bit smaller, so that you stand a chance of delivering.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, David. Another question we've got here is, could we be provided with previous projects so that we don't repeat the same ideas? But in actual fact, I don't think that really matters. But David, would you like to answer that more?
I think you're right. I'm not sure it does matter. However, I'm more than happy for us to go back through our documentation and just provide a list of the projects that have been undertaken previously, to give examples if that helps people, because that's part of lessons learned after all, and we should be sharing that information with you. So I haven't got a problem with that at all. We can easily do that. I think we've got an action.
Okay, thanks. Another question we have here is, can we use internal templates for project documents, for example, PMP?
If your organisation has a governance framework and templates, yes, we've seen this before. We'd expect people to be using the templates they have access to. What the judges do take into account is the fact that a big blue chip organisation that's been doing project management for years and years and years has probably got a very robust and well-organised governance structure around projects, whereas a smaller company, which might be new to undertaking projects, they might not have access to the same governance framework and documentation. So we do take that into account and recognise the fact that a smaller organisation might have to show some more innovation in terms of producing templates, etc., etc. What we're trying to do is make it a level playing field as much as we can, so that everybody stands a chance of getting through to the finals night.
Okay, thank you very much, David. I don't believe we have any further questions coming in at the minute, so we could probably round up from there. If anybody else has anything else they would like to contribute. Excuse me. Just to round up then, all these questions that we've just gone through, these will be added to the frequently asked questions document, which you're going to be sent out and will also be uploaded onto the Thames Valley PM Challenge webpage. And that obviously gets updated right throughout the competition. So if anybody else has any questions or concerns they have, which get sent to the PM Challenge email address, for example, all those will be added in due course to that long list. And as I say, hopefully at the end of it, we'll do another survey and capture everything that we need to capture. But do refer back to our information pack. That's your Bible. And as I say, anything else added onto that, we'll certainly get back and answer as soon as we can. David just has one more thing he wants to add. I'll pass you back.
Joining us, hopefully that's been useful. Best of luck. Please, adopt the attitude of the more I put in, the more I get out. Don't be disheartened if in 5 months' time you're not presenting on finals night, because you will still have gained a prize in some way, shape or form in terms of your own personal development and what you've achieved. Yes, you can put it on your CV, and there are a lot of people out there who've been through this, and it's a fantastic opportunity which we're offering for free, effectively. I appreciate there's an entry fee and there's a budget for organisations to find, but this is run by volunteers. We do this because for some mad way we actually enjoy doing this sort of thing in our spare time, and we get an awful lot out of it in terms of seeing people develop in terms of the project management profession, and that's what APM is all about. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Sorry, I just need to add on there quickly. This webinar has actually been recorded. I think we previously said that, but just in case we didn't, it is being recorded. And again, a link will be uploaded to the Thames Valley Branch PM Challenge webpage, hopefully either later today or tomorrow. But thank you very much for listening. And as I say, any further questions, do email us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you very much.